Welcome to Study Time, a televised home learning program produced by Rwanda Basic Education Board.
Hello, students of Senior 1 Chemistry class. You're most welcome for today's lesson. I'm Scovia, your chemistry teacher, as always. We are here for Unit 2. We are going to continue with Unit 2. You remember last time we were in the lab. We had started looking at how we behave in the laboratory and how are the rules in the laboratory. So I think everybody now is very clear with how to handle yourself all the disciplines in the laboratory, all right? What we call the safety rules and regulation in the laboratory, specifically chemistry laboratory, all right? So today we're going to look at the laboratory apparatus. The other time we were looking at how you behave when you're in a laboratory, the rules and the regulations in the laboratory. Now today we are looking at the apparatuses in the laboratory. That is lesson 3, laboratory apparatuses. All right? You remember the other time I told you in the previous lesson, we had discussed what do we find in the laboratory. In the laboratory specifically, we find their chemicals and apparatuses. So the apparatuses are the materials we find in the lab. All right? Then the chemicals, those are the reagents we use doing chemical practicals. All right? So today we are focusing on the laboratory apparatus, the materials we find in the lab, the apparatus we find in the lab, and how to use them. All right? So what is the objective of our lesson today? Today we'll be able to tell the uses of common laboratory apparatus. We're going to look at some of the examples of the laboratory apparatuses and their uses. All right? So another thing you will know at the end of this lesson, you will be able to know how to handle common laboratory apparatus effectively. All right? You remember in the rules and the regulations that when you're in a lab, you need to be very attentive. You don't need to attempt any experiment without a teacher's a teacher's permission. Why? Because there are some substances, the chemicals specifically, which are very dangerous to our lives. And when we don't handle them with care, then they may cause accident to ourselves and to the other learners, all right? So today, by the time we finish to study this lesson, we shall be able to tell how to handle common laboratory apparatus effectively. And we shall know those apparatus and their uses. So it is our today's focus. So because we have known how to behave in a lab in the previous lesson, today we are now in a lab. We assume we are in a lab. All right? How are you going to handle the apparatus? Another time we shall talk about the chemicals, because they are the major things we find in the laboratory. The chemicals and apparatuses, these materials. These materials can easily get broken. So we need to know how to handle them effectively. And we need to know their uses and to know them, all right? So let's continue with the lesson. Those are some of the common apparatuses, the commonly used laboratory apparatus, all right? So here we shall have the name of the apparatus. We shall look at its diagram, and we shall see what it does. What does it help us in the lab? How do we use it? What is its use in the lab, all right? So from the diagram here, we look at what we call the conical flask. That is a conical flask. We have around 2 kinds of flask. We have the conical flask and the round bottomed flask. But this is a conical flask. What do we use it for? Sometimes we use it for heating liquids or screwing filtrations. When you're doing filtration, we put liquids in this conical flask, and you try to mix when you're doing filtration, square. All right? So this is a conical flask. And that is the diagram. All right? So this is a gas jar. all right? It helps in the collection of gases. So there are some experiments, when you are doing some practicals, there are some experiments where there is a liberation of gases, all right? And we need to collect the gas. So we use the gas jar. So a gas jar is used in the collection of gases, all right, as it is mentioned. As the name indicates, gas jar. So evaporating dish. So this is used in evaporation to separate solutes from solvents. What does it mean? When we talk of solute solvents, solute, those are kind in solid state. Things that dissolve in a solute. For example, when I get water and mix the salt, I get a solution, all right? I get a solution. But when I want to get back my salt and the liquid, I need to put in evaporating dish, then I heat. When I heat, water will evaporate and leave the salt on the evaporating dish. So the evaporating dish is used in separation of solute from their solvents. All right? We have another very important apparatus here, we call it deflagrating spoon. It is used when burning solid substance like phosphorus. So when you are burning some solid substances, we use this deflagrating spoon. All right? So we have a spatula. This is the diagram of a spatula. A spatula is like these common spoons, these common small spoons. It is used for what? It is used for scoping solid chemicals, especially when weighing. So when you have like some solid substances and you want to transfer it from its container to where you want it to be measured from, you use this spatula. And always I told you, remember in the rules and regulations, don't use one spatula, the same spatula, in different chemicals, in different substances. So one spatula is used to weigh or to scope one single substance. Then when you want to measure another one, you use another spatula. When you use one spatula in different containers, from different containers, you find that there are mistakes, all right? So always use one spatula in one substance. Don't mix them, all right? So this is a spatula used for scoping solid chemicals, especially when you're weighing, all right? So we continue. You can look on the slide. We continue with this. This is a pair of tongs. What is the role of the pair of tongs? So it is used for grasping and lifting materials, including hot ones. This one you can call it, you can mistake it to be a scissor. It is used to lift, like I have a test tube. It is very hot. I want to boil something using a test tube. I'll put and insert it here. Then I hold it with these tongs, the pair of tongs, such that it cannot burn me when I'm trying to heat or to boil, all right? So that one is a pair of tongs used for holding or for grasping materials, especially those which are hot, and you feel like you can be burnt when you use your hands. So you use it to grasp. You fix it, if it is a test tube, like a small test tube, you fix it inside here, then you hold it with this pair of tongs, all right? So this is a three-point stand. A three-point stand has got 3 legs, as the word tri-point. Tri means 3. It has 3 stands. It's used to hold or to support beakers while heating. Now, when you're heating, you put a beaker on this here. It sits here on top there, all right? As heat is coming from down there, then the beaker sits there. Then you try to apply heat down here. So it helps in supporting beakers while heating liquids, all right? That is a tri-point stand. The wire goes. So now the wire goes, when you're heating, you have to get this wire goes and place it on a 3-point stand here, all right? You place it in a 3-point stand. Then you put a beaker on top. So it supports the beaker from falling or moving down here. So it is put on top of a 3-point stand. It acts like a mat, let's say. It acts like a mat. It's put on top of here, then a beaker is put on top of the wire gauze. So a wire gauze is placed between a beaker and a 3-point stand during heating of solutions. It ensures even distribution of heat. All right? So this is another important thing that we have, or another important apparatus that we have in a chemistry lab. It is called the Liebig condenser. This is used in converting the steam to liquid, all right, or in the condensation of liquids. So it is supplied with hot water somewhere. You see this, there's this inlet, outlet, sorry. This is an outlet, this is an inlet. So the liquid which is cold passes in this inlet. It is distributed there. Then something you're boiling passes inside that tube there. So as it passes, when it is in form of steam, it is condensed with this hot, cold water that is passing here. Then as the water becomes hot, it is removed through this outlet. Then the thing which is coming as in form of a steam and is hot is collected somewhere here down in a container put, all right? In brief, it is used as condensation, for condensation, all right? It is also very important, specifically when we are doing some heating of some fractional distillations, all right? Good. So we have many of them, and their use, and it is very important for us to understand them, and by the time we start to use them, we get to know this is used for this and this is used for this. And when I call a child to bring this, don't get confused. You will know this is this and this is this. So by the time I was talking of the other flask, the conical flask, I had talked of the flat-bottomed flask. All right? So this is the flat-bottomed flask. Look at here at the bottom. It's flat. The name comes from there. Flat-bottomed flask. All right? So this is used for heating liquids and to contain chemicals. You can put in chemicals and you transfer them somewhere you want. So it is used also for heating chemicals, liquids, and for keeping or containing chemicals. So this is another important thing. You have the thistophaner. What is the role of the thistophaner? The thistophaner is used when adding liquid to existing systems of apparatus. So when you want to add the liquids, you transfer small amount of liquid to you add to another liquid, you can use a thistophaner. All right? So what is this? This is a volumetric flask. The volumetric flask is used to prepare outlet volumes of solutions. So when we are specifically in what we call titration, when we are doing titration, normally this one you find they measure in liters. Like where there is this thing, this mark here, you find it indicates a liter. So the volumetric flask, normally we use them during titration to do what? To measure accurately the volumes of solutions. All right? So you need to be very careful with these apparatus because they want to look the same, but they'll play different roles. We can continue with very many. We have the filter funnel. The filter funnel is used to call out filtration. As the name filter funnel, it is used together with the filter paper. Normally you get what we call a filter paper. You insert it there. Then you want to filtrate some substances. You pour in a filter funnel here, which holds a filter paper. Then the residue will remain on a paper. Then the filtrate will move through a filter funnel. All right? So we have a pipette. This one is used for measuring volumes of solution dropwise. So I want to pick small amount of liquid. I pick it with a dropper or this pipette. So I need to pour little by little, dropwise. I'm doing some reactions. I want to put little drop by drop. So you squeeze on top here. It is normal rubber on top here, and here you find there's a grass sometimes. So you find here it's rubber. When you squeeze it, when you squeeze that, you suck at the liquid. So you want to drop the liquid, you don't squeeze it, you leave it. So this is a pipette. It is used to drop solutions or volumes of solution dropwise. one by one. As you release it, it drops a certain amount of solution. When you squeeze it in a liquid, it pulls the liquid, all right? So that is also used, the pipette used for measuring volumes of solutions, drop-wise, all right? We have the round-bottomed flask. So remember we had the flat-bottomed flask, we had a conical flask, and now have a round-bottomed flask. It is round. The bottom is round. The other one was flat. Another one, the first one was conic. This one is round-bottomed flask. What is the role of this flask? Normally, these flasks have in common like the same uses. They all normally used for heating and to contain chemicals. All right? So as other flasks, it is also used for heating solutions. The round-bottomed flask is used for heating solutions, contain chemicals, and distillation. All right? Good. I have many. Now, those are some of the apparatuses that we use in the lab, but we have even those used for measuring mass. When you're measuring mass, there are very many apparatuses that we can use. So one is the beam balance. You have the electronic balance. This is this one is connected with electricity. So these two are used for measuring mass. They're also among the apparatus we need to find in the lab, because in the lab, we weigh substances. We don't just put substances the way we want. We need to first weigh them to know their weight. All right? So these are the substances we use for weighing. All right? So we have also those for heating. I was talking of heating and collecting gas in the lab. What helps us to heat? These are mainly used. The Bunsen burner, the stove, and a spirit lamp. But commonly, nowadays, we use the Bunsen burner. The modern laboratory, we find there a Bunsen burner. All right? So these ones supply source of heat. They supply heat. All right? So we need also those ones in the lab. There are apparatuses that are used for measuring volume. So measuring cylinders. So the measuring cylinders, you find them in different categories, or in different, they contain different amounts. They have different capacities. So we have the one of 10 milliliters, 50 milliliters, 500 milliliters. All right? These ones we call them measuring cylinders. Use it for measuring the volume. They tell you in a lab, when you're doing some practicals, please measure for us 10 milliliters, measure for us 50 milliliters, measure for us 500 milliliters, and less or more. So you use the measuring cylinders to measure the volumes. So there is this bullet also. In filtration, we use a bullet. All right? It is also, in titration. When you are doing titration, we use this one. You pour substances, you open this tap, drop by drop, as you're doing your practical. We shall all see that when we start doing the practicals, but you need to know it. That is called a bullet. So we have the pipette there. The pipette are used for sucking. When you want to suck a certain amount of liquid and transfer it in the bullet you have seen, we use a pipette. All right? We also have a syringe here. The syringe also helps in sucking or in measuring some volumes. All this we are saying, we are looking at, they are used for measuring volumes. As the title, you see, the title is apparatus for measuring volume. One, the measuring cylinders, have the bullet, so have the pipette, you have the syringes, all right? So we also have apparatus for measuring temperature, all right? So when we are doing any practical work, we need to know the temperature we are working in. So you get this is Don't call it a clinical thermometer. It is used in the lab. So as you're going to work out to do an experiment, you have to record. Because normally you studied that as temperature increases, the rate of reaction also increases. So temperature speeds up the rate of reaction. So somebody is working under a certain temperature, a more temperature than the other. The time it will take for the reaction to finish will be different. One is working, let's say, under 24 degrees Celsius, the normal temperature, the normal room temperature. Another one, let's say, is working beyond that temperature. The period it will take, the time it will take to the reaction to finish will be different. Why? Because the reaction or temperature speeds up the rate of reaction. Is that clear? So we need to be having a thermometer in a chemistry laboratory, because as we start to work, you first measure the temperature you're working in. For example, you're doing one paper in Rwanda or in another country, you're doing the same paper, but some people are working from here. When the temperature, other students in another school, they're working at different temperature, maybe it's raining in that area or like that. Or you may be doing an exam here and other people doing it in another country where the temperature is different. So in the exam, normally they try to indicate the temperature you are working in, because the temperature goes hand in hand with the time of completing or finishing the reaction to take place. So temperature needs to be measured in an exam, such that you get to know what exactly the temperature you are working in, so that you don't, as I said, temperature goes with the rate of reaction to get finished. The period, the time, temperature and time goes hand in hand. So when the temperature is high, the rate of reaction is very fast. So we need a thermometer to measure the temperature in a chemistry lab before we start the experiment. All right? So these are some of the common, not all, but the common, as our topic, the commonly used laboratory apparatuses and their uses. All right? Remember in the objective that you need to tell the uses of common laboratory apparatuses. Doesn't mean these are the only apparatuses we have in the lab. You may find even more than those, but the commonly used one. Those are what we have seen. And how to handle them. You see, you're going to boil something, you use your hand. When you use your hand, you find that it burns you, and at the end of the day, you find that you break the test tube. So the test tube needs to be, when it is hot, to be handled very using precautions, right? So that you don't have to power it down. You see, I talked of the pair of tongs. What is the role of the pair of tongs? To hold those hot things. So those are precautions on how to handle the apparatus effectively, right? By the way, most of these apparatuses, most of them like these ones, they are in a glass form. When you don't handle them effectively, these ones are all in a glass form. They will break down. So when they break down, an accident has happened. All right? So you need to handle them carefully, such that you don't cause accident on yourself and you don't cause accident on your fellow students. All right? So these are the commonly, I don't say the only, but the commonly used apparatus in the laboratory, specifically the chemistry lab and their uses, as we have mentioned. So I think everybody now, when we start doing the experiment in the next lesson, you will be able to tell the uses, or if somebody tells you to pick a certain apparatus, you will not get confused, all right? I think you will be able to rush and pick what you have told to pick, and you know how to use it because you have studied them and their uses, all right? So before we close for the today's lesson, we need to look at the homework there. There is a homework you need to do at home. The first question is discuss the various sources of heat used at home. We have talked of the various sources of heat we use in the laboratory. So what are the, if you have known what sources of heat is, and the examples of those we use in the laboratory, so at home, what are some of the sources of heat you use, all right? Another number 2, which piece of laboratory apparatus will be most suitable for each of the following activities? So we have activities here. We have some activities A up to F. All right? So among the apparatus we have studied, which one is suitable for all this? One, holding 50 cubic centimeter of boiling water. What apparatus do you need to use among what you have studied? Another thing, melting a crystal over a Bunsen burner. So I'm melting a crystal over a Bunsen burner. Which one should I use among what we have studied? Another one, powering 50 cubic centimeter of acid from one container to another. Which one have I talked of that will help you to transfer a small amount of a liquid from one container to another? We have looked at that. Another thing is measuring exactly 30 cubic centimeter of water. What is that? The other one is removing substances from reagent bottle. So what do you need to use? We have looked at that. And the last one is weighing 100 grams of sodium chloride. So what do you use among these? Among these we have talked about which one do you use if you want to weigh. So we have looked at all of that, and I think you can concentrate on this homework, and when we meet the other time in the next lesson, we shall try to collect it together, and we see, now we start working on the practical work, because now you know how to hold yourself or the discipline in the lab. Now you know the apparatuses in the laboratory, and now you know the uses of the commonly used apparatuses in the laboratory. So I think now you are able to do any practical work that you are given, all right?